For me to work in different media, different techniques, it's because I don't see my work as an investigation of one idea. For me, making art is about encompassing universal themes like mortality, poetry, joy, life, history, pain. And to do that, for me, the theme is what's important, not the technique. So I can use similar ideas, but I can express them in different methods, which is different than a lot of contemporary Spanish artists who quite often have one idea and they investigate the idea. I believe that an artist has a role in society, and that role is similar to a professor or a doctor or a priest or a rabbi. And our job is to digest information. And by doing that, I use all kinds of different techniques. I need to answer questions in every media I can, every technique. My background is actually in comparative literature, not in Bellas Artes. And for me, the idea of the book, after comparative literature, I studied fine book binding and cuadernación and restoration. And so for me, the art object is often about a narrative and often is a form of a book. So I'm using, for example, the biombo is a kind of form of a book. Some of these works reference Don Quixote and the Locura is about his madness in reference to the book. With the long scroll, for example, it's a reworking of a poem by the French poet Blaise Cendrars. In the first room, there's some references to Walt Whitman. So for me, literature from my background is always incorporated into the work. My work comes out of a stance of erudition even before Bellas Artes, before art technique. Well, if I'm to speak about a specific work, for example, this work comes out of it's a reworking of a famous artist's book by Sonia Delaunay and Blaise Cendrars, about Blaise Cendrars crossing the Trans-Siberia Railroad during the first revolution of 1904 in Russia. And my grandparents, mi abuelos, come from a town in Lithuania, and during the Holocaust, they crossed over Russia to get to Japan. So I rework this poem and this livre d'artiste, this libro artístico de Sonia Delaunay y Blaise Cendrars, to tell the story of my family crossing Russia through a migration, through exile. Formally, this is an interesting piece because the idea came to me because I had the roll of paper to begin with, and it's a roll of Hanamulla paper, which is a German paper, but it's made of 30% bamboo and 70% linen. And I thought, wow, this is a marriage of East and West with a German company for paper. So I decided to begin kind of a flowing diary that would rework the train voyage across. So I don't make any sketches for these kinds of works. They simply come improvisationally, and I simply work every day on 1 meter forward, 1 meter forward, 1 meter forward, and I have no idea how the work is going to conclude. It's absolutely a surprise by the end. In fact, all of the work that you see is improvisational. It looks like I make a lot of sketches and that I have it completely worked out, but I don't have it worked out. It's a puzzle that's in my brain, and I just simply begin the work, and it manipulates itself as I see the images. So this one took quite a long time, and yes, it functions in a way like a diary. There's some things from personal life that go in here, as well as historical life that go in here. There's things that reference the original Russian trip in the original poem, and then there's things from my family history that are also referenced in here. So the working method is completely without intention. It's just grabbing ideas and they form a life of their own. Dyslexic twister. Dyslexic because I see things in riddles. I see things in puzzles. And if you look at the work closely, you can often read it from right to left to right or up to down, or you'll see a kind of creative morphology. You'll see something that looks like a face but is also a horse, or looks like a horse but is also an armchair. Twister has many connotations in English. It can be a tornado. Yeah, it can be also a kind of convolution, a kind of acrobatic twisting or mixing of parts, going backwards, forwards, and it also can reference a kind of madness, a kind of locura, a kind of craziness. So in this sense, I feel me as the artist, but also artists in general, are these kinds of twisters, these kinds of storms that go through society and suck up the information like Dorothy's house in The Wizard of Oz and spit it out again. And our art answers those questions. It digests what it picks up. The dyslexia is because it's how I see things, and it explains how an exhibition can feel coherent even though it has things in ceramic and painting and drawing and leather and encaustic wax, because it's all there in the mess, in the madness.